She was his new best friend.
Her husband started seeing another woman.
And it was happening under our roof while I was in the next bedroom.
So she started searching online for another man.
It was like being a kid at a candy store.
See how this woman receives a supernatural do-over. Plus, meet the Manns. The acting and gospel singing couple David and Tamela Mann share their secrets to love, marriage, and family. All that and more on today's 700 Club Interactive. Well, welcome to the show. Voters in Alabama have approved a constitutional amendment that allows the display of the Ten Commandments in public schools and government buildings. Supporters say it encourages schools and towns to display the Ten Commandments and sends a message that Alabama wants to acknowledge God, the God of the Old and New Testament, the Christian God.
Evangelist Franklin Graham praised Alabama voters for the amendment on Facebook, saying, "It is so important to vote and let the Christian voice be heard in the ballot box. In a time when secularism is attempting to remove God from everything in the public realm, this is major. As Christians, we need to keep praying, work boldly, and stand firmly on the solid rock. The Ten Commandments define God's laws and were the foundation of man's laws. I hope more states will follow Alabama's example."
Well, I hope too, as well, that more states would follow that. But the problem is, until you amend the U.S. Constitution, I don't see that this is really going to work. I see lawsuits coming Alabama's way as soon as Ten Commandment displays start appearing in schools and at courthouses. This is all what Judge Roy Moore went through, and we all need to be reminded he lost those cases. That doesn't mean we stop. Here's something that I think is very significant. Modern psychology is finding that when you read the Ten Commandments, it actually makes you a better person. If you don't believe me on that, go and look at TED Talks. There's a psychologist from Israel who's put together a pretty remarkable study showing that when people read the Ten Commandments or read an honor pledge, that suddenly they become better people. They become more honest, they're less likely to cheat on a test, and they're less likely to steal. So having the reminder of the Ten Commandments around us is actually quite good and makes us better people.
Exactly. Makes for self-government, right?
Yes, it does.
Well, throughout history, the church has been a driving force behind social change. Today, community-driven congregations are still playing that role.
In Indianapolis, churches are building bridges between neighborhoods and the police in a community program that builds trust. Take a look.
Can we all get along? Can we get along?
Division between police and certain communities is nothing new. And while many enjoy an amicable relationship with law enforcement, social media shines a light on the division and broken trust.
But in Indianapolis, members of the faith community and law enforcement hope to exchange vantage points and walk a mile in each other's shoes.
All thanks to a program called One Cop.
But one thing that's really unique and special about One Cop is that it's really focused on beat police officers. These are the people who, if they're doing their job correctly, are literally walking up and down the block.
And it's something this community sees most every day. What they don't usually see is a nun in a police car, or police officers seated in pews during the week. Church leaders also get to try their hand at being officers, facing the challenge of split-second decision. The team at One Cop believes churches are uniquely positioned to break down any walls existing between the police and those they are sworn to protect.
To walk the streets, I think with a police officer would be an eye-opening experience.
Pastor Jim Wright jumped at the opportunity to be a liaison and perhaps more.
Introducing them to the community and being a host site for the community would be a really good way of connecting the community with the police officers, with us as the bridge, and then, Lord willing, opening up the door to share the gospel.
Local law enforcement are also eager to open doors and make a good first impression. If you commit a crime here in Indianapolis, you're likely to wind up here at the Marion County Jail, where you'll be greeted by a member of the Sheriff's Department. Well, local law enforcement are hoping to change all that and build a relationship with the community before they wind up in jail. Marion County Sheriff John Layton hopes renewing relationships can help cut down on counterproductive codes like no snitching. He also wants to create and build levels of respect.
You shouldn't have to fear a uniform, ever fear a uniform. but please respect it.
While Layton blames social media for the growing antagonism, he quickly admits mistakes have been made.
There are tens of thousands of police officers across the United States. Every now and then one steps out of line. Sometimes it's a mistake of the head, sometimes a mistake of the heart. It's such a minuscule percentage of the police that are out there every day dodging bullets instead of sending them.
Put your hand behind your back.
Even a few, however, can deepen the divide.
The 17-year-old lay prone on the pavement as the shots continued, 16 rounds in 14 seconds.
The aftermath captured in graphic video and streamed live on Facebook by the man's girlfriend.
In Texas, for example, tensions remain high after Dallas police officer Amber Geiger shot and killed 26-year-old faith leader Botham Jean inside his apartment. Community leaders there questioned why Geiger was able to stay on the job for so long after the shooting. Indianapolis crime reporter Steve Jefferson points out if and when incidents like this happen, transparency is important. He's seen it work so far in Indy.
The ongoing relationship, which still needs a lot of work, has kept things from being explosive here in our city.
He credits programs like One Cop and other faith-based initiatives for helping calm things down. Prevention is key, and Jefferson adds that training goes a long way.
Our department here in Indianapolis now actually teaches officers not to let their biases impact their work on the street. We all expect to be treated a certain way by the police, and I think them knowing how to de-escalate a situation, whether it be a traffic stop, whether it be trying to ID a young black man who you think is trespassing.
As a deacon himself, Jefferson knows the church can play a major role in building relationships.
Pastors need to do is take advantage of their captive audience, because if they can get the message to the parents of the children, then the children can get the message from the parents.
Sheriff Layton is optimistic because mutual respect and basically living by the golden rule will successfully bring churches, the community, and law enforcement together.
We can start respect again, not just for the uniform, but for the people in those churches.
Amber Strong, CBN News in Indianapolis.
Well, I applaud the effort, and certainly we've seen results right here in the city of Norfolk with a police department, local clergy partnership, and the clergy actually ride along and are wearing uniforms that say clergy, and they're able to de-escalate situations because people look at them and say, okay, I can trust you. So often we do not trust our police forces, and there are plenty of reasons for that. And how do we reestablish trust? How do we reestablish community? How do we reestablish one nation under God and not this divided nation where you're prejudged primarily based on the color of your skin? How do we get past all of this? And I don't think there are any easy
With all
solutions.
that bias, too, there has to be civility. So much of this escalates out of a lack of civility that then creates this angst inside of the people involved on both sides, and it just it hurts everybody. Just hurts everybody.
But I also think it's a lack of understanding of the history of it, where you look at our constitutional protections, and at the point of time of drafting of that document, the 3/5 compromise got put into place, which essentially disenfranchised a whole group of people that you don't even get to count them for your census. And then you go through the Civil War, then you get into the Jim Crow laws, and then what's called the Black Codes, which essentially made it illegal to be a particular color. What did that do to create a culture within our police forces? And how does that linger on, where culturally we think of a particular group as somehow being criminal? And that's shown in our stats, where 1/3 of African American males aged 18 to 35 are somehow in the system. They're either being charged, or they're in jail, or they're on parole. So these are things that, how do we change this? Well, you've got to start, and we need to start now. Well, speaking of community, a small town has united in support of an autistic man at risk of becoming homeless. Jonathan Charbonneau, a 52-year-old man living with Asperger's syndrome, almost lost his home due to a significant rent increase.
Well, the community found out about Jonathan's rent dilemma and set up a GoFundMe page that's raised close to $40,000. Jonathan's a local celebrity in his hometown of Glen Ellen, Illinois. He works to keep the streets clean and crime-free, and he's known for his Superman costume, which he wears every year in the 4th of July parade. Awesome. Love the community. Yes,
yeah.
that's
community
wonderful.
is being a superhero. They're standing
Absolutely.
up saying, yeah, we're in your camp, Jonathan. That's a wonderful thing to do.
That's the way it has to happen. Coming up, they're best known as the lovable Leroy Brown and Cora Simmons from Tyler Perry's popular TV show, Meet the Browns. David and Pamela Mann share their story spanning over 30 years. You don't want to miss them. They're coming up next. Tamela Johnson had a love of music. David Mann had a natural flair for comedy. So when a mutual friend introduced them in high school, their two worlds were never the same.
NAACP award-winning actor and comedian David Mann and Grammy award-winning solo artist Tamela Mann are no strangers to the limelight. But it's not what they did in front of the cameras that has made their relationship last. With a blended family under one roof and lots of mouths to feed, the Manns knew they had to work together if their family was going to survive. In their memoir, Us Against the World, David and Tamela share what they have learned over 30 years of marriage and how it's made them stronger than ever.
Well, joining me now are David and Tamela Mann, and we thank you for being with us on the Interactive Show.
Well, thank you for having us.
Well, we just got a little picture of some of your life, a composite form, but you actually met in high school.
Yeah. Oh, I was in high school. Her friend, she went to our rival high school.
You went to different schools.
Yeah, she went to my rival high school, which I almost didn't like her because of that. But her friend, you know, her close friend, brought her to our school because we had like a popular choir in the city.
Right.
And so she brought her to come and sing for a group we had, Kirk Franklin, myself, and Darryl Blair, and she blew us away.
Wow.
And I fell in love with her voice, not her quite yet, but her voice at least.
So when did the Quite Yet happen?
It was a while because actually I started singing with the guys. It was 3 of those guys.
Okay.
I started singing with them, and it was about, like you said, like a
couple of years,
year and a half.
We just, it developed, our friendship developed over time.
Right.
And it was just friends, and
that is the best way to start.
Yeah,
isn't
I wound up falling in love with my best friend.
Yep.
You know? I mean, because it's like our true foundation. Because friends tell each other everything. We confide in each other. Yes, and it's like no hidden agendas.
Yep.
And it really worked for us. And it's like he had all the qualities that I had kind of written out, like to God, of what I wanted in a husband one day. So
I didn't write mine out. I just seen it.
That's good. We'll keep that. Yeah, that's good.
So it just kind of started unfolding, and we just started growing closer and closer together. And
well, you need a solid foundation of friendship like that to do what you two have done, which is to blend a family.
Yes.
Tell us about your family.
We have a super blended family. We have my oldest daughter, and we adopted a niece. Tam's sister passed, and then we have 2 together, and we're a super blended family. And we tell people our blend is seamless.
Yes.
You know, you shouldn't be able to tell where the blend starts and ends. You should be able to walk. No one should be able to walk in a room and see who's who.
That's
who
right.
belongs to it.
And this really, I know, somewhat comes out of your heart to not have anybody be seen as a stepchild.
Right, because I grew up as a stepchild, and I know how that felt. And with me taking in the girls, I looked at them as being my own. I didn't birth them, but they're my own, and I want them to feel like they were my own. We made no differences for the kids.
There was an instant when one of our daughters, she introduced her, Portia.
Yeah, Portia was like 8 years old, and I introduced her as my stepchild. And we were leaving, we had left service, we were leaving church, and we were in a car, and she was like, "Mama, when you introduce me, can you just introduce me as your daughter?" And it really pricked my heart so bad. And I was like, I said that'll never happen again. And it never happened again.
Wait, out of the mouths of babes.
Words
matter. Wow, words do matter.
They pay attention.
Yep, that's wonderful. Wonderful that you listened.
Yes.
So you both come from incredibly successful, creative backgrounds. I mean, everything you've done with excellence. So why a book?
Well, you know what? So many years, everybody was like, when are y'all going to write a book? Because we've really been mentoring couples since the beginning, you know, of our relationship. And it's like, it just kept, and the Lord just kept putting it on my heart that we really need to do something more for family.
And that's really what this is about. It's called Us Against the World, and that's really what every couple is pretty much
And when we
trying
say,
to establish.
Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry for cutting you off.
No, go
but
ahead.
we have a story about how Us Against the World happened. But Us Against the World is not just for us as the man family. It's for us. The you means all of us.
It's us as the body of Christ.
We're standing and fighting against anything that would tear down the family structure.
Well, a big part of what you share in here is how you have each other's back in every situation. You're trying to outdo each other and doing good for each other.
And covering each other. You know, that's the bottom, you know, whenever she's on stage, I'm her biggest cheerleader. It's a kind of an industry joke that you could always find me on the side of the stage in a trance, just watching her like some zombie. Like, people have actually taken pictures of me as like, I don't like people talking to me when she's singing because I'm tuned in. I'm like, I want to make sure that she feels my heart if she doesn't feel anybody else's on the stage.
And I'm standing on the side laughing when he's doing his comedy.
As if she's never heard the joke.
But I think that's what really helps and makes us, is we support one another in what we love to do, and we push each other. There's no jealousy of one more than the other, but we're there together. We build it all from the beginning.
Can I just ask you, because you had 30 years of experience of blending and growing and staying connected. You know, you're both on the same wavelength, and you write so much about your faith in here. What do you say to somebody who's watching us right now who maybe is unequally yoked, wants what you have, but isn't in a relationship with somebody who's able to or willing to give back to them?
First, I ask them, okay, do you guys want the same thing? Because you got to want to go the same and have the same goals. And so that's, it sounds elementary, but you sit down and say, you know, are you guys willing to say, okay, we want to be equally yoked? Because if the answer is no, you got a problem.
Where are you going to go?
That's
where do
true.
you go? And so it's something
that's a hard question. It's like, I don't understand. A question as simple as what?
Yeah, it's just as simple as just saying that. And then once both people sit down and say, yes, we're willing to do what it takes, let's pray for direction.
Yes.
You know, because we get this, and I remember getting off subject, we get this dreaded S word that men say to women, submit to me.
Yeah.
And that, you know, it's a dreaded S word because men, we've turned that into like a dictatorship. And we don't give our house anything to submit to. We don't give a mission for our house. So next we have to find out what the mission for our house and our marriage is.
Oh, it's so rich.
And it made it come, as the woman, it made it easier because you seen the direction he was following behind, leading of God, going to God, asking the Lord, what's the next steps to take? So it made it easy for me to follow because it's like, I know that you're listening and asking God to order your steps.
Somebody's got to lead, right? Yeah,
Yes.
Somebody's got to lead.
And somebody has to hear from God.
Yes, Boy, is that the truth. Well, it's all here. They've written it for you and for me. Learn more about their story, but more about how it can impact your story. It's called Us Against the World. It's available in stores nationwide. That also happens to be the name of their album. This is the first one they've done together. So there you go. You can enjoy them both on the same CD. Us Against the World, The Love Project. It's available at Walmart, Amazon, iTunes, and Spotify. Thank you so much, Rich Wise Counsel.
Thank you for
having us. Appreciate you bringing it to us.
Thank you for having us.
Yes. Gordon?
Well, still to come, a lonely divorcee becomes addicted to an online chat room.
It was like being a kid in a candy store, having access to all these men, inviting them into my bed, into my heart. I even nicknamed myself the Queen of the One Night Stand.
See how this woman was set free from all that and much more right after this. After 11 years of marriage, Joanna's husband left her for a woman he met online. Not only did that make Joanna angry, it also made her curious, and soon she was frequently online chat rooms herself. Before long, she became the self-proclaimed Queen of the One Night Stand.
I was spending my private time online in the chat rooms and meeting these men and inviting them into my bed, into my heart, and living this secret life on my own, and yet during the day, I was holding down a full-time job and was very responsible and came across as someone who really had it all together.
Joanna grew up believing she was unwanted. Born out of wedlock, she felt she forced her parents into a marriage and a family they wouldn't have chosen otherwise.
The pregnancy was accidental, and I just translated that into meaning that I hadn't been really wanted. It just kind of reinforced that message that my presence here was sort of a mistake, that I was an accident. I really just wanted to be wanted. I wanted to know that someone had wanted me.
She longed for acceptance and rushed into a marriage when she was 21. But over the years, Joanna and her husband grew apart. She noticed he was spending more time on the computer. After 11 years of marriage, she discovered he was involved in a relationship with a woman he met through an online chat room.
I confronted him at that point and asked him who he had been talking to and what did she mean to him. And I remember he told me she was his new best friend. And that just devastated me. I mean, I had been married to him for 11 years. And I thought I was his best friend. And he was talking to someone 3,000 miles away who was his new best friend. And it was happening under our roof while I was in the next bedroom. And it just killed me.
Joanna and her husband divorced. Both angry and curious about what had drawn her husband away from her, she created an online account. The chat room conversations were casual at first, but became sexually explicit over time.
It was like being a kid in a candy store, having access to all these men who, seemed far more interesting than my first husband had been. And they were interested in me. They were interested in what I had to say.
Joanna became addicted to the attention.
I started to get hungry for that and was really looking forward to just feeling like that again, because I had felt so unwanted and kind of tossed away and rejected. I didn't necessarily want to get healthy or get better and recover from the divorce. I really just wanted to feel good all the time.
The conversations led to in-person meetings and then sexual encounters.
I really believed at that point in time that my only real value to men was as a sexual object. I even nicknamed myself the queen of the one-night stand. I knew deep down inside how empty I was, and if someone got too close and got to know me really well, they would see that emptiness.
For 7 years, Joanna lived a secret life of promiscuity and online addiction. In 2007, she met a man who was a Christian and began attending church with him. It was then she was faced with a choice.
He eventually told me that he was interested in being with someone who shared his faith. And I certainly wasn't that woman at that time, but I wanted to be. I wanted to be with him. I remember that night praying as best I knew how and having a conversation with God and telling him that I wanted him to make me into the kind of woman that the gentleman I was dating said he wanted to be with. I had no idea really what I was asking for.
The next time she attended church, something was different.
Everything they said seemed to make sense, and it was almost like God was just giving me these insights and these revelations, just one right after the other. And I realized I wanted to do things God's way. I realized all of a sudden that I was tired of doing things my way. I wanted to know what the gospel meant. I wanted to know what it meant to be saved.
Joanna met with a pastor who shared the gospel message with her.
I went home after that meeting. I read through the scriptures that the pastor had given me. I turned around, got on my knees next to my bed, and just started to confess a lifetime of sin. I confessed my addiction. I confessed all the sexual sin, the years of sleeping around, and the tears came, and there was just sobbing and just, I'm sorry, God. God met me there. God met me in that mess, and he lifted that burden, and he forgave me, and I remember feeling happy. I mean, happy like I had never been. I felt giddy almost, and physically lighter, like I was just completely unburdened from all of that.
Joanna surrendered her life to Christ and was delivered from her online addiction and promiscuity. And while the relationship with the Christian man eventually ended, the acceptance she found in Christ has been there ever since. Today she shares her story through her book, Do Over, a testament to the love that changed her life.
And now I know, without a doubt, I know that God wants me. I know that I was wanted from the beginning of time by Him, and that I am loved by Him. Literally, I heard, "You are a treasure." And it was only because of the fact that He had created me to have value just because I was here, because the God of the universe knit me together, because He said I was fearfully and wonderfully made, and because He had plans and purposes for my life from the very beginning of time. There are no accidents and there are no mistakes. And I am living proof that that's true.
And you can be living proof that it's true, that God has a plan and purpose for you. Joanna grew up feeling rejected, and that will actually haunt you, where if you think, I just don't belong, or I'm just not loved, or, why am I here? All of those questions, and it will haunt you through relationships too. And then you'll start looking for the rejection to come. And in that search for it, you will find it. You search for that, you'll get it. And instead of the acceptance we all long for, we go through rejection after rejection after rejection, always trying to fill that hole. What can fill it? The love of God. He wants to. He made you. He fearfully and wonderfully made you. He made you for special purposes. He created good things for you to walk into. What does it take to access them? Just what Joanna did. She turned her life. She said, "God, I need you now. Will you forgive me of all the things that I've done wrong? Will you set me free from them? And if you'll do that, I will trust and obey. I will follow you all the days of my life. I don't want to live it my way anymore. I want to live it your way." If you want help with this prayer, we're here for you. We're not here to judge you. We're certainly not here to condemn you. We're here to tell you there's a God who loves you, who is able to transform you from your innermost being and bring you into a relationship with Him. All you have to do is call us, 1-800-700-7000. Here's a word from Psalms: "Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me." God bless you. We'll see you again.